4,400 calories a day. That's the target number fire camp caterers work from when they're feeding a wildland crew, and most firefighters still lose weight on a long roll. You can eat that much and still come home 10 pounds lighter, because a 14-day deployment doesn't just take your time, it takes your body apart and asks you to keep functioning anyway. This is what those 14 days actually look like. The alarm, if you can call it that, goes off around 4 in the morning. Not because anyone loves being awake at 4, but because fire behavior follows the sun. Humidity is highest and wind is calmest in the early hours, which means that's when a crew has the best shot at making progress on a fire line before the afternoon heat turns everything against them. Firefighters get up, eat fast, and gear up in the dark. Breakfast depends entirely on where you are. On a big incident with a full base camp, it might be scrambled eggs, bacon, hash browns, and coffee by the gallon, cooked by a contracted catering crew that could be feeding 2,000 people that morning alone. On a smaller fire, or out at a spike camp miles from the main base, breakfast might be whatever came in on last night's supply truck. There's no consistency to count on. You eat what's there, when it's there, and you learn not to be picky about it. By 5 or 5:30, crews are loaded into buggies and headed toward the line. This is where the day actually begins, and it doesn't end for another 16 hours, sometimes more. A shift that runs 16 hours isn't the exception on a wildfire, it's closer to the rule. Federal guidelines call for 1 hour of rest for every 2 hours worked, but anyone who's spent a season on a hotshot crew will tell you that math rarely survives contact with an actual fire. Lunch on the line is a sack lunch, and ask any wildland firefighter what they think of it, and you'll get the same answer. It's the least popular meal in the entire system. A sandwich that's been riding in a pack since 4 in the morning, sweating through its wrapper in 90-degree heat, is not exactly appetizing by noon. Researchers actually studied this. They found that firefighters given small snack-sized portions to eat throughout the shift performed better and reported higher satisfaction than firefighters who ate one big sack lunch all at once. But institutional food service moves slowly, and the sack lunch, soggy sandwich and all, is still standard on most fires. When the sack lunch runs out, and it often does by hour 10, that's when the MRE comes out. Meals ready to eat. The same rations issued to deployed soldiers get pulled from a firefighter's pack and eaten cold or heated with a chemical warming pack straight out of the pouch with a plastic spoon. Almost nobody prefers them. Almost everybody eats them anyway, because on a fire line, calories are calories, and you burn through them faster than you can replace them. The work itself is relentless in a way that's hard to picture unless you've done manual labor for 16 hours straight. Cutting fire line means swinging a tool, a Pulaski or a McLeod, through brush and root systems, digging down to bare mineral soil in a strip wide enough to stop a fire from crossing it. It's done on slopes that would be a serious hike even without 40 pounds of gear on your back. Add smoke thick enough to sting your eyes, temperatures that regularly clear 100 degrees, and the mental load of tracking exactly where the fire is relative to your escape route at all times. And 16 hours starts to feel less like a work day and more like an endurance event that happens to also require chainsaw operation. Then the shift ends, and camp still isn't rest. Gear has to be checked and repaired, tools get sharpened, water bottles get refilled for tomorrow. If there's a shower trailer, and on a large incident there usually is, that's where you go next, standing in line with hundreds of other exhausted people, waiting for 5 minutes of hot water. Dinner comes after that. Another hot meal if the catering crew is running 2 hot meals a day, which is standard on a properly supported fire. Sleep is whatever's left. On a main base camp, that might mean a 2-man tent, or increasingly, a personal sleeping bag laid out in a dedicated sleep trailer with real walls between you and 2,000 other people's snoring. Out at a spike camp, the satellite camps set up closer to remote fire lines, specifically so crews don't have to drive hours back to base every night. Sleep might mean a bivy sack on bare ground under open sky, with no walls or privacy, just you, your sleeping bag, and whoever's boots are 6 inches from your face. By the time anyone actually lies down, it's often 11 at night. The alarm is set for 4. That's 5 hours on a good night, and that's before accounting for the fact that falling asleep instantly after 16 hours of adrenaline and physical strain isn't as easy as it sounds. Do that math across 14 days and something becomes clear fast. This isn't a schedule built around comfort. It's a schedule built around triage. "14 days used to be 21, until federal agencies noticed something troubling in their injury data. The 3rd week of a deployment was when injuries spiked hardest, not the 1st, not the 2nd, the 3rd. Fatigue doesn't announce itself. It accumulates quietly until a foot lands wrong, or a chainsaw slips, or a decision that would have been obvious on day 1 takes an extra half-second on day 19. Cutting the standard roll to 14 days was a direct response to that pattern, an attempt to pull crews out before exhaustion turned into something worse than tired. It doesn't always work perfectly. Firefighters and fire managers alike have pushed back on the 14-day cap for years, arguing that a hard number doesn't account for how differently fatigue hits different people or different fires. Some crews could safely go longer. Others are running on fumes well before day 14. The policy is a blunt tool applied to a problem that resists blunt solutions. What gets lost in most conversations about wildland firefighting is how much of the job is this. Not the flames, the food that's never quite enough, or never quite good, or both. The 5 hours of sleep that get shorter as the roll goes on. The sack lunch nobody wants, and the MRE everyone eats anyway. The bivy sack under the stars that sounds romantic until you're on night 9 of it. 14 days on a fire isn't 14 days of fighting fire. It's 14 days of eating what's available, sleeping wherever there's ground, and finding out exactly how much your body can absorb before it starts sending warnings. The firefighters who make it through a full season aren't just the ones who can swing a tool for 16 hours. They're the ones who figured out how to survive everything that happens in the hours around it.